myth number two, students can't pay top market rent. Everyone thinks of the age old, students can't pay rent, they're going to cause problems. And the reality here is that students can not only pay top market rent, but what we're seeing in this market right now with a lack of student housing across the province in some of these key university towns is that parents are obviously supporting their students primarily, and they're willing to pay top market rent or above market rent for safe and secure places. And right now they are desperate to get their kids out of their house and into school. Some universities are renting out hotel blocks to put up students because first year students don't have guaranteed housing anymore on campus. So the situation is dire. Guelph student rentals are renting at $600 a room 2 years ago. And if you were even in the student rental market and now you're popping back into it and you think rents are maybe at $700, $800, we're seeing student rentals over $1,000 a room now in Guelph.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. I'm Adam J.D. Martin, and today we're joined by Hart from RentPanda, and we're going to talk about the 5 myths associated to renting to students. I know everybody's freaked out when it comes to renting to students. What's going to happen to this place? What could possibly go wrong? Young blood running through the rooms there. What are all the pitfalls to this thing? But what are also the myths, right? What have I heard that's not exactly true? So Hart, I would love for you to fill us in on what some of these myths are.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Adam. So the first myth that we hear every single day is that no experienced landlord or no landlord in their mind would rent to students. It's for young landlords. It's for people that are just trying to get into the game. But the reality here is that 65% of landlords polled would actually rent to students, and over 50% of landlords polled have rented to students in the past. The reality is you got to know a few things, but you can make a lot of money off renting to students if you've got systems in place, if you know what you're doing, and if you educate yourself before you jump into it.
Yeah. Okay. First myth, I'm going to bust it right away. Like, absolutely no. I know tons of landlords that own multiple student rentals. I've managed a few myself. I've had one myself. Yep. And that is absolutely false that it's only novices renting to students. It's for sure a valid strategy that experts all around the world are going to be using.
Yeah, for sure. And even, if your whole portfolio isn't student rentals, you don't need to just focus on student rentals. You can have a mixed portfolio with some student rentals, some young professionals, get into some seniors housing. It's all doable as long as, again, you've built those systems for each one of those verticals. So myth number 2, students can't pay top market rent. Everyone thinks of the age old, students can't pay rent, they're going to cause problems. But really, with my student rental, I've got to put a place on the market that's not very nice, that's got, holes punched in the walls, that won't mind if there's beer cans on the front lawn. And students are only going to be able to pay, $300, $400, $500 for a room. And so that's the type of housing that it's got to be. And the reality here is that students can not only pay top market rent, but what we're seeing in this market right now with a lack of student housing across the province in some of these key university towns is that parents are obviously supporting their students primarily, and they're willing to pay top market rent or above market rent for safe and secure places. And right now they are desperate to get their kids out of their house and into school. And so we've seen cases in Guelph, in Toronto, in Kingston, where parents are commuting an hour and a half, morning and night, and plan to continuously to drive their kids to school. Some universities are renting out hotel blocks to put up students because first year students don't have guaranteed housing anymore on campus. So the situation is dire. The housing affordability problems that exist throughout the province are really, really acute when it comes to the student population. And generally, the demand is outstripping the supply across the province, and that's causing real problems for students. But thankfully, they've got parent backers. And so those parents are willing to throw their dime around to get their students into houses.
Yeah, 100%. And a best practice is to always get the parents co-signed onto those leases. It adds accountability to the students themselves. They know that their parents are also going to be on the hook in terms of any damage or any anything like that that would potentially go on in the house. But they can absolutely pay top market rent. And actually, everybody that I know who is heavily involved in student rentals cites the strategy being actually that being one of the pros, right? You're actually able to often charge far more per bedroom.
Yep.
And the student rental strategy is about heads and beds. That's really how this works. But you can absolutely get rent premiums for having that and then get it back by the parents. And if you've been stuck in your house for the last couple of years with your kids, you're going to pay anything to get rid of them for the next 4. So 100% agree with that.
For sure. Myth number 3, students will damage my home and disturb the neighbors. And so everyone thinks of first year frat boys running around the property, causing issues. But student housing is, spanning the gambit. And oftentimes these student landlords, the professional student landlords, are only allocating a marginal amount more for their repair and maintenance budget when they're doing their calculations than their non-student rentals. So, yes, you have to get a good cleaner, and you don't want to be cleaning that place yourself at tenant turnover time. But a good cleaner, a good handyman, and a good painter, and a marginally larger budget for repairs and maintenance will get you there. The other thing is that not all students are, first year frat boys. You've got upper year students, you've got master's students and PhD students. And so this blanket term of not renting to students is really a general myth, where you can find amazing, awesome student tenants who pay top market rent, but also treat your place really, really well. And we've seen some amazing student rentals that look better than a lot of other rentals on the market, even after the students have been through it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues with that myth, with like, oh, they will do damage, is kind of the so what element, right? If they do, what does that look like? A couple of holes in the drywall? That is absolutely, it costs nothing to patch drywall, right? Yeah. And guys, drywall is half an inch thick, 5/8 at best. This is a very cheap repair, and you can, and more often than not, if it does happen, you can just ring up their parents, say, hey guys, we got a bunch of holes in the drywall. What am I supposed to do about this? Right. Yeah. And often there you'll get a budget allocated from the parents or from the students themselves, or they'll offer to fix it. Caution if they offer to fix it themselves. Okay. It may not come out the way you would fix it. So I would opt for you to do it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So the 4th myth here kind of strikes upon what you just said, in that you can't screen student renters. And the reality is you can screen them, and you screen their parents. So having a parent guarantor for every kid who is on that lease is crucially important. And it's less important about, going to small claims and sending your N4s when the rent isn't paid. It's more so about having that pressure point to be able to call up those parents and say, hey, there's an issue that's going on. You don't want to jeopardize your kid's schooling. You don't want to jeopardize anything going on in town. And you got to get on this. And, here's the damage bill, and you're going to pay it. And if one student's parent is refusing, the next student parent will, I'm sure, say yes. And there's that mentality of the group who's not going to let one person down. So make sure you've got that guarantor. Make sure you screen that guarantor.
Yeah, and I've used it. The other thing, sorry to cut you off there, but the other thing that's important, like honestly, if it goes unnoticed, somebody will have missed a lot of the value of this video, is screen the parents. Yep. Okay, if you have a walkthrough with those parents and you can tell this is a very squeaky wheel, perhaps you should continue interviewing, because the parents can often be 10 times worse than the students when it comes to student rentals. So that's a huge point that you just kind of glassed over, but it is honestly one of the biggest takeaways from this video.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that walkthrough, like you said, is incredibly important. That's where a lot of landlords will skip over that walkthrough, do it virtually. Getting to know someone in person, whether it's the student or the parent, that's going to be really, really crucial. And that kind of goes into how to actually screen that tenant. If it is just a tenant and they're working part-time, check into their job just like anyone else. Even if it's a part-time job, call that employer. What type of industry is it in? Check into their extracurriculars. We rented to 4 students at the University of Guelph who were all rowers, and they rowed 6 hours a day, and they had to maintain like an 87% average. So those students are not partying, they're rowing and they're studying. So check into their extracurriculars, check into their program, check into their year, and then treat them like anyone else as human beings and evaluate their general demeanor and respect. Did they show up late to the showing? Did they come well dressed? Did they look around and ask the right questions? If they were late, did they text you saying that they were, going to be running late, or call you? How was their car when they drove up, if they had a car? Did they time it correctly with the right buses? Like all of those intangibles that you really want to get when you meet someone as a human being, students are exactly the same. So you definitely can screen tenants.
Yeah, for sure. But it does sound like you have never drank with the Guelph Griffins rowing team before.
Fair enough, but yeah.
But yes, you can absolutely screen these guys and always look at the car, right? Like if it's an absolute disaster in there, it's not a for sure that that's what's going to happen in your house, but it's possible for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then the fifth and final point is that students aren't good long-term tenants. And this one is actually true. So, and in a funny way. So students will typically stay between 1 and 3 years, and they are good 1 to 3 year tenants. And this isn't really a myth, because as a landlord in this market, whether you're renting in Guelph or Toronto or Thunder Bay, pretty much anywhere in Ontario and in Canada right now, you do not want a 10-year tenant. You don't even want a 5-year tenant. With 1.2 and 2.5% increases over the last couple of years, you can't catch up to market rent if you have a tenant in there for 6, 7, 8 years long. So students, demanding top market rent and above, and having them there for 1 to 3 years is actually a really sound strategic choice for any savvy investor.
Yeah, absolutely. Rent has been on an up and to the right winning streak for a long time, and it's one of those things that's not really fixed to price either. So as we see our market prices fluctuate, I don't think we'll ever see the market rent fluctuate in that same way. I don't think it's coming down, it's going up. So any long-term tenant is actually a trade-off when it comes to profitability. So
yeah, for sure. The demand is just way too high right now, and it'll take years and years for that to come down to match supply.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree with all of that you just said, Hart. And yeah, I think those are some really insightful points that anybody can use to start researching today, start looking into the strategy, or even maximize their strategy now by using some of those extra tips, like screening the parents, right? Yeah. Making sure you get a guarantor and making sure that you're keeping up even with the market rents. I think that's one challenge too that I've seen in the student rental market, is that some people actually just don't follow what market rent is. It's possible you're leaving a lot on the table. And some of those conditions you just described are going to be very important to talk about, when you're thinking about what should I list this at, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And again, this is where we can go ahead and we can use something like RentPanda to go in and see what is actually happening on the market. What are some of these listings going to be going for? What sort of insights and data can I use to actually get this placed?
Yeah, for sure. And even having our leasing team come through and evaluate your property and provide a rent assessment is incredibly important. And we've talked about this before, but Guelph student rentals are renting at $600 a room 2 years ago. And if you were even in the student rental market and now you're popping back into it and you think rents are maybe at $700, $800, we're seeing student rentals over $1,000 a room now in Guelph. And so having an expert come in who's got their finger on the pulse is even more important than checking your Facebook marketplaces, checking your Treb listings, checking RentPanda as a platform. All of that is really good, but having that expert come in is even more important now than ever.
I love that, man. Elevating on service there. That's absolutely a value add service. So Hart, that's fantastic. Where can we find you? What's the best way?
Yeah, rentpanda.ca. We respond to every inquiry, every email, every phone call. If you call the number on rentpanda.ca, you're calling my cell phone. And so we really have our finger on the pulse with rentals. We make sure that we've got teams across the province who specialize in those various markets. And if you are a landlord, whether you're doing it yourself or you want that full service leasing option, we're here to help out.
Fantastic, Hart. I appreciate that. And guys, the team at RentPanda is fantastic. So please, please, please go there right now. Follow them, jump on the website, just look at the services they have. I know you're going to be using them. So please, if you haven't already, give us a like, subscribe to the channel so you can get more updates from Hart at RentPanda. It's Adam J.D. Martin. I hope you guys have a fantastic day.